We're live? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Good morning, everyone. My name is Elena Boeva. I am real estate broker in New York City for about 18 years. I went through three major events, through 9/11, through economic crash in 2007 through 9, and now COVID. So three different kinds of events, different factors, but the reality is that during those times, New York City was not a great place to be, but then it always rebounds back. But I think this time is going to be quite different because new technology is emerging, and COVID lockdown told us that we had to adapt. We had to adapt to new changes, and we have to be able to work from anywhere we are located. So, and most of real estate companies actually were not ready for that. By that I mean most of real estate agents or rental agents. How could you show a virtual property, right? So we didn't have that technology. So we were caught off guard. So it had to take us several months before we actually implemented virtual tours. And I was very happy with that because, first of all, I could just send the video to all the clients. They could preview it, for example. They will save each other time, and it will be a quick deal because I show virtually, I fill out applications virtually, I approve, sign virtually, all that stuff. But then it did work for a while, but then New Yorkers, most of New Yorkers did want to see the property physically because they understand that most of properties in New York City are not great quality and they are very expensive. So even though it looks nice in the picture, you can't really see or feel the hallways, the lobby, how people are in the elevator. So all these human factors cannot be included in the virtual touring. Sometimes people like to smell the apartment or the hallway nearby because it is important. So yeah, and it did take a while. So I would say that the virtual tour, for future, it will work, but it's not going to be 100% tool to help the rent an apartment. But it definitely helped. So things like that. But then we have another factor, which I think is even more important. During the COVID times, all the companies, whoever could do that, they worked from home, as we know. They work remotely. So luckily, majority of companies already had the system. For example, my friend, she's doing sales. She's been doing remote work for like 5 years, and that was not a change for her. It was a change for me, but not for her. So therefore, her company was well adapted, but mine wasn't. But they quickly changed, which was better. But then this approach, work from home, actually worked for many companies. So their performance did not decrease as a result of that. And that, I think, is a new change that is going to drive a lot of different changes in our lives. As a result,
Lena, and how like the COVID can change the commercial real estate, for example, or like the private real estate. And after that, I want to give time for the short introduction for the Peter too.
Sure. So commercial real estate is actually suffering a lot because right now companies realize they can save a lot of money by not having big offices anymore. There's no need anymore, and that's a lot of savings, which means majority of real estate building. From my point of view, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know everything, but the dynamics is that majority of companies do not need office space anymore. I don't think WeWork as a company will survive as a result. So now commercial buildings would have to change more into residential. And as a result, there'll be more availability of residential buildings in New York City. Therefore, majority of landlords will finally start thinking seriously about upgrading their buildings, upgrading their amenities, giving better deals. The price for real estate will reduce. It's not going to be skyrocketing anymore. It's going to be more reasonable. And another feature I would add that you would have to think more ecologically. So we have to have the city more smart than now. We have to have more eco development, more eco features, better recycling strategies, and we have to make it more beautiful. We know, you guys know, there is a lot of garbage still. The subways are not great. It's been happening for 20 years. I didn't see major improvement, to be honest with you. So things like that.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Well, this is actually my third time showing up on the Bananas webinar. Thank you very much for having me here. My name is Peter Chun. I'm actually the Smart City Master Planner in London and now in New York City. And I'm actually operating 3 different companies, and Archive Labs is a smart city designing company, as well as we investing in those projects around the world. World Smart Cities Forum is a non-profit organization based in London. We basically educate leadership of the municipalities and central government and how they actually drive through their own project regarding making the city much more sustainable or eco-friendly, and also bringing there some economic engines in the city. X-Entry is a long-time tech accelerator based in London. We have nurtured more than 500 companies by now, and about 13 companies become unicorns. So actually 3 different entities involving in the 8 different projects in small cities around the world this time. So we have mandates in Vietnam right now. So we're working on the Hanoi Smart City and Ukrainian smart cities as well. And here in New York City, we're actually in the midst of working together with the city government and DIT, like a central government of the UK, and collaborating with the smart city initiatives in the Netherlands. And we are tapping into some other projects in Brazil as well. So, but the thing is, I'm supposed to be in Brazil right now and back to London and back to Vietnam, but I can't take any flight anymore. So because of COVID-19. So I think
okay, what's going on? Yeah, what's going on with PropTech in New York City?
So our mission here in New York to initiate our project here is about PropTech Hub, because many people may agree with my ideas or not really agreed on this, but innovation ecosystem is not really great comparing to other cities in Europe. Especially there's a big gap between London and New York now. So that is the main keyword that we consider it as a big opportunity. So it's kind of ground zero. I think there are a lot of businesses here in New York City is very old-fashioned, and even the
tell me about it.
Tourism and the restaurants. So that's the beauty. I mean, you know, a lot of people watching the movie and they have the kind of ideal scenes from the back streets of New York City anywhere,
like Sex in the Sex in the City, yeah.
So yeah, I know.
Our friends, yeah.
There has been a lot of ideals and ideologies and dreams for many different type of people living in the city or tourists from outside of New York City. But COVID-19 changed everything now. So there was exodus from Manhattan in the past 5 months. So we are sitting in the Madison Avenue, like a Midtown near the Grand Central Station, where the New York City government is actually operating the kind of the small hub for innovation regarding the smart city. Nobody's showing up now. So a lot of tenants in the major commercial buildings, they're in big trouble. So they're shutting down their businesses. They actually just had their employees working from home, and landlords they do not know exactly what to do because based on their conventional way of running the business and regarding this real estate, everything is like wrong now. So even we were actually looking for more than 500,000 square feet space in Midtown. So I've been actually looking up, searching for spaces with my real estate advisors back in 2019 up to April. And landlords, the gesture and their perspectives is trying to invite us, of course, but they trying to make us to pay a lot of money, right? So, and then something happened. So they actually kept calling me and directly indirectly, and they just trying to tap into us what to do, right? So we're trying to just seize the space, but our strategy now is totally changed. We don't need a kind of big space anymore. So I'm thinking that kind of business like a WeWork, kind of co-working space was really hot even last year. I don't really believe that this kind of model is probably maybe staying during pandemic, after pandemic. So because if I were actually operating the bigger businesses here, probably we have to think about consider the safety of the employees first, right? So because we just got used to how to communicate by the Zoom conference call, StreamYards. So it's, in the beginning, everybody felt uncomfortable, but it's been almost 5 months now, and now we feel much more comfortable these days, just like we do these days today, right? So the future employment market or probably maybe businesses in the future might be way different. For example, I'm actually helping establishing the vision of the master plan of small city in Hanoi. I'm supposed to be there because kind of Asian culture, Asian, the business habit, they have to just get together, they have to face each other. But technically speaking, it's not possible now. So they had to change themselves. Now they're getting used to it. And then, so I don't have to be there. Probably maybe after this pandemic, after the vaccines or treatments is coming out to the market. And before that, we are pretty much comfortable to communicate with the leadership of the Vietnam or Ukrainian government, or maybe Dutch government, UK government. So I'm sitting here. This is my first time in the last 20 years not moving around. But the quality of the work and everything is still the same. In the beginning, I had some doubts, but for me, it's kind of really much more busier these days. But I think this kind of digital transformation will be beneficial to many new businesses out there. So I think maybe New York City's property market, PropTech, I think PropTech will be another rising concerns to the existing real estate businesses and owners of the buildings.
Okay, and what is the future of PropTech? And maybe you can explain what's going on with technology and real estate in New York City and in general, in global. What is the trends?
You ask me or?
Yeah, who do you ask?
Lena.
Thank you. I think the future is very bright for real estate technology. I'm glad it's happening. It's kind of behind, right now it's still behind the curve, but it's catching up. There are some companies like, for example, TF Cornerstones. They have everything digital, everything, signing leases, renewals, approving virtual tours. They've been great, but most of the companies were not like that. Some companies still give paper renewals, and that's not sustainable way of doing the business, and it's very expensive. So you want all the documents to be available digital for you. So let's say you renew online, you get a copy right away. You don't have to wait for physical copy for God knows how long. Plus, it's easy to save the digital documents. It's hard to lose it unless you don't know how to save documents digitally. But I think we have to actually implement more technologies in real estate. And it's happening. Because of COVID, I see more and more photographers and different companies improving digital virtual tours, online paperwork processing. I don't know, guys, if you ever seen, if you do a condo or co-op board package, that's like a lot of paperwork. It's like 50 or 100 pages right there just for one deal. And again, I can't stand using so much paper, to be honest with you. That's waste of our trees. Why should we do that? It's very unreasonable and unresponsible. So when I was speaking first, at the end I said we do have to be more eco. We have to have eco minds.
Yeah.
And that comes to actually every company and every city we live in. There is one technology called Passive House. We actually, what it does is it helps you to conserve heating and cooling system and improve air quality in the apartment. As a result, you have great living and you pay less for your electric bill, which is great. But most of our buildings don't have good insulation for us to have this happening. So we have to think like that. So you actually don't have to have a new building in order for this to happen. You can convert old building into passive house. And then we have modular housing, where you build a skyrise. Not you can build really tall, but you can build a big building in a matter of 4 or 5 months versus a year or two. And it's cheaper and it's more sustainable to do that. And it doesn't create a lot of noise. For example, there is this building in Brooklyn, I think it's called 123 Dean Street, where it's the first building actually in US that has the highest number of floors for modular housing, which was not possible before. Before, people would build 1 or 2 story modular houses. Now we can build high rises. So that means technology is improving, but it's so slow. And I think it's so slow because we don't have enough maybe funding for that. We don't develop that.
Energy too. Green energy for the New York City, and something sustainable for the food too.
And food, yeah, it's another aspect. So before COVID, all the restaurants were open. As you know, New York City lives with restaurants. But we had a lot of food waste, so much food waste. Every day at night, there's big mountains of garbage there because we don't use food sustainably. That's another factor. If we are better in that regard, we will have less garbage in New York City. And that's great because we have tons of garbage here. So what I'm trying to say, it's not just about real estate technology, but it's about, I think, ecological mindset that involves everything, because we live in a world where it's round. If you pollute in one place, it comes on the other end of the planet and the other way around.
Lena, and cybersecurity and security too. I think it's really important right now.
Of course, the more digital we become, the more online we become, the more we have to secure our system. Yes, of course, it's going to be another improvement there.
Cars too. like a mobility with bicycles, and how we can protect.
That's not my strongest point as far as cybersecurity. I don't have much information about that, but we definitely have to improve real estate technology.
And what's going on the finance side? What's going on the banking side? How it look like for New York City too?
Well, a lot of people are working from home, but I think they are more technology savvy than real estate. So I think they are a bit in better shape than real estate in that regard. But then again, as I mentioned before, we can do virtual tours, but seeing physically apartments is nothing you can substitute it with unless you don't care. So yeah, but paperwork processing has to be digital. Cannot be paper anymore because it's ridiculous. Yesterday I ordered 4 printers to print my renewals, and I spent almost $1,000. Crazy. I mean, it's not my money, but if I was a property owner, I would be very upset. They spend so much.
Peter, next.
Yeah, I'd like to hear Peter's opinion on technology side.
Yes, and what's going on? What is the difference with London, for example?
I think that we're talking about the city. The major concept of smart city, we have to focus on how to regenerate the city, because every city has a lot of issues. Just like Elena just mentioned that, a waste of food, garbages is major issues in everywhere. I think the biggest problem from India and China, based on these garbages, and some of the developing countries, they're not ready with the efficiencies in sewage systems and waste management systems. That will be another challenging point for the human race. We're talking about the pollutions and everything, but we're focusing on the metropolitan cities, just like New York City here, LA and Silicon Valley, which is San Francisco, Beijing, Shanghai, London, Paris, and so, because it's very obvious, a lot of jobs created there. The people just rushing into the city, and that's why the residential, housing in the city is skyrocketing. Has been skyrocketing now, but the trend will be changed in my point of view. I think probably more jobs will be spread out. It has been, aggregated by now into the city, but many different jobs that will be out of the city. So I think that probably condominium and apartments, the cost, not now though, probably after next year, the price will be maybe going down because the less demands, because no more jobs. Just like less jobs now. The ecosystem of the job market has been probably different by then. But I think maybe townhouse or individual houses outskirts of the city, there would be much more demand. But the thing is, there might be some conditions. We had talked about the PropTech for the new properties in the future. I think that, as you mentioned, the food tech is also important, because we love to go to the stop by the restaurants and the eating outside, inside, right? So even by today, I think most of the restaurants in New York City, you have to just eat outside. You cannot eat inside. But there was a news today, 25% of the capacity indoor of the restaurant will be permitted probably this week in New York City. But still, we are losing people in New York City, and most of the restaurants, they do not make money. They actually have stack up their deficit by now. So the individual, the restaurant, they don't know exactly what to do. They actually relying on a lot of deliveries and takeout services. I think that will be the huge demands now. I think the delivery services connected with the future house systems will be another concerns we're actually looking at. So food tech with delivery systems and logistics, that will be another the big rising options for the PropTech. We see that. Of course, Elena, you don't have to copy the $1,000 stuff, and I think maybe a paperless things are going to be happening. Even already in London, major government offices, they don't have papers in their desk, so it's like a paperless already just going on, and a lot of countries, they actually just testing it already. So even the DocuSign kind of thing, you don't have to sign something. So we just do all the documents and buy DocuSign or equivalent services. That will be another big market in the next 1-2 years. Like a Zoom conference call. Of course, we don't have there's a Zoom services, but there are so many different platforms to just communicate with people, like one spot to another. That is kind of the communication tech is also the prerequisite for the PropTech. And cybersecurity is very, very important thing, because everything is like connected. Connectivity requires how to the securities, right? So cybersecurity and also the protecting people from the invisible threats like COVID-19. So maybe remote healthcare systems and kind of services will be another rising markets with the PropTech as well. And probably blockchain concept will be used a lot to making this kind of thing happen. Zero energy building is another big potential market in Europe right now. I do believe that this kind of zero energy building or zero energy housing will be applied to the American cities, mostly probably maybe major metropolitan cities.
I hope so. We are wasting so much energy here, so much fuel.
Yeah,
way
so
too much.
That's the big problem for the leadership of the United States. Say they have to think about the next generation.
Yeah.
So I think that in general, I think that there will be kind of the function of the metropolitan city. We be watching the defunctionized in post COVID-19. So the office buildings, I don't think that there will be a big investment or a wise investment at this point. Probably from now on, next to maybe the short term or midterm. But housing outside of the city will be another big market. So maybe property businesses, they need to think about it. Even you have to check out there's a huge surge on the boat sales in the United States, because they're really bored and staying home, so they just buying or leasing the boat. And I know some people, they actually just connected with the satellites and they work from boat, and they just like visit some islands and also
but you can work from Bali.
Yeah, but international it's not going to be possible because quarantine issue, even though you just get in the boats. But internally, like in the United States, you can go anywhere. I think that is another markets with something. And also the huge agenda for Amsterdam smart city thing is actually floating housing concept. It's already begun a few years ago, because the new generations, the younger generations, they're sick and tired of the paying a lot of money to the house. But the new concept of the house is floating the lake or some kind of the river and stuff, and they live in there and the same house. You don't feel anything kind of floating or moving, and also their workplace is really nearby, so you don't need a car. So you just like riding a bike from your home to the workplace, and just like within 10 minutes or 20 minutes. But I think the COVID-19 is another issue now. So even that kind of the short distance between home and the workplace, that will be also another challenging point now. So eventually the people I think maybe the generation of 2030s, they maybe really consider about their working environment in the future, working home and entertaining themselves home, and communicating with their colleagues just like this. Probably maybe one time something, just like frequently they meet, but it's not going to be like every day. Probably 1-2 times a month or something. And so if the large corporations, they don't need to secure the big commercial buildings, right? So they don't need a big space. They'll probably maybe diversify their spaces every different corner of the streets, or maybe outside of the cities as well. So people can actually get access to the office to have as a small meetings there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So maybe one more thing about fintech, because already a lot of the countries, they have the cashless services already, right? Even in South Korea, if you go to Starbucks, they don't accept any cash at all. Only the credit card.
Only cards, yeah.
Or something. So that will be, really, really fast. So kind of the smart finance, that will be amazing market now, because of people like making order like Amazon everywhere. You just like order some food like by the delivery services. You've never seen the Benjamin anymore. So yeah,
Right.
that's pretty much it.
Right. Yeah, and if I may add, I was thinking yesterday. I was thinking about our webinar, and I realized also, yes, people are moving out of the city. They're moving to suburbs because it's cheaper, it's bigger, it's better quality of life. You are with your family. You can meet your friends. You invite them to their house, or they come to your house. But what's going to happen to these major cities? We build so much property, and it is very expensive.
Right.
So now I think all the cities who had impact would have to think that they have to make the living in the city as almost like in suburbs, so that people don't have to leave. Otherwise, all of this is going to be super cheap. It's going to be cheaper to live in the city than in suburbs. Well, I'm just speculating the idea, but
yeah. And I have a question about investors. What is the best strategy in real estate right now for the investors? Or maybe you give advices for the landlords and renters?
Yes, I would like to give a couple of advices.
Or maybe for the buyers too. Yeah, what is the best strategy right now? Yeah. Okay, for the last like 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'm gonna be very quick. For investors, I would recommend to wait and see what's happening with the city. For landlords, I would recommend not to wait for problem to really start happening for them. I think they have to slowly but steadily renovate inside the building, like have new, I'm talking about Manhattan because we have a lot of outdated buildings there, and you know that. So I would do, if I was landlord, I would do new laundry area. I would make it amazing, like high technology laundry rooms, beautiful. It doesn't cost much than, let's say, updating the whole lobby. And then slowly I would add new features to the building, because many buildings here, they don't have much services and they're asking a lot of money like before. Now it's going to be a different change.
And for the renters, or who want to buy?
Renters in charge right now. So they're asking for a lot of things. I would say they want champagne for the price of beer, and some landlords are willing to do that, which would not happen, let's say, last year. That would not be even a discussion of this. When people ask, I want 3 months free on a 1-year lease, and I'm like, get out of here. But some landlords say, yeah, sure, just be here, because we need something. We need some income, then nothing. So yeah, they have lots of choices. I would say go find the best deal possible for yourself. That's it. You can shop now.
Okay, Peter, what do you think? What is your best advice for the investors in PropTech?
I'm paying a lot of money for the empty space since February. London, I run the 4 different spaces now, so I'm just paying for nothing, even though I'm not actually working there.
Sucks.
It sucks, definitely sucks. But
is it commercial or residential?
Commercial.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough.
It's very expensive. So we're actually struggling to deal with the landlord of the space, and
of course they don't want you to go. They want you to be on the hook.
They don't pick up the phone.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
So it's really hard to contact them. A lot of people are actually complaining about it because it's not really fair. Because a lot of the businesses they're suffering from the during pandemic.
I want to tell you something funny.
Yeah.
A tenant calls me yesterday. He called me. He goes, Elena, is it true that if like we don't pay rent, nothing's gonna happen? I'm like, what do you mean nothing's gonna happen? Well, yeah. While courts are closed, that means that instead of you're gonna have Marshall coming into you, but instead of 6 months, maybe it will come in 8-9 months. But they're gonna kick you out and make you pay money. So it is still there, but well, it sucks that they don't pick up the phone. That means you have to sue them. I don't know. Yeah. They don't want to make a deal with you. They have to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that as I mentioned earlier, WeWork model is not going to be workable anymore.
And what is the next? What is the next after that? What do you think?
Probably I'm suggesting that because people staying, there are like a lot of houses, like a lot of the bigger capacity of the residential houses in New York City, and now suffering from it, right? So, but that's the big concern of the city government as well, and also the landlords. I think the mindset of landlords, they have to be changing. I think the WeWork model could be possibly adapted into the big residential house, like the building of the kind of common ground for a community ecosystem. And people, they don't want to actually get out. I mean, I don't know exactly which apartments Elena live right now, but I'm actually here in Link apartments here in Long Island City. We have a kind of common ground we cannot use, but most of the buildings now, if you take a look at it, if you take a look at the gym, of course, gym is like very standard everywhere. But community, common ground is kind of very simple. I mean, just like the tables and something. So I think that is okay, but the future infrastructure of the common ground, and someone or some companies are really good at it. I think probably maybe WeWork, they probably give up the model with the commercial buildings. They have to maybe change their business model with the residential apartments, or maybe some kind of common ground center. I think because the people are not actually going back to the commercial buildings anymore. Even probably maybe less than 30%, they can actually make that up. But the majority of the people, they stay home. I mean, that's the only thing. So WeWork model will be workable in that way, I believe it. And I think if the construction companies, they're building some new apartments or residential houses, they all think about kind of hardware stuff, right? But maybe in the future, property will be much more embracement with the software and contents, how they combine together. So how they actually, convince the future tenants with the jobs or tech jobs, whatever, and they have to just attract them to their new different models. Anyway, yep.
Yeah,
okay, something positive. Guys, something positive at the end for the PropTech.
Well, I've been waiting for New York City to become more like suburbs, but with urban twist. I think it will happen sooner or later because there is no way otherwise to survive with this kind of dynamics.
Maybe in October.
Maybe. Well, I think this whole thing is definitely a positive change. There is some sacrifice, but I think we are now thinking more sustainable, more efficient, so that all the operations in real estate work more digitally. Because as I said again, we were behind the curve. Now we're finally catching up, and that's going to be great. We just have to make the city much more pretty and better and cleaner.
The problem is the city government, the state government, New York, they're running out of their money. So they don't have any budget and no money because no taxes coming in, out of business a lot, and people like, evacuating from the city. So I think I want to be really positive, but there will be kind of adjustment period of time before everything is like stabilized. So
right,
maybe
right.
By the end of this year we have to just like
it's not gonna happen overnight. We have to plan it. It may take 10 years, who knows, but if we plan it and work together on that plan, we can definitely make it work. London is much more sustainable than New York City.
Okay.
London is the same thing. I mean, so even in the UK, they don't actually recommend the people wearing a mask, and just like Sweden and
interesting.
North America, Northern European countries, and of course in the UK, because they suffer from the Spanish flu and lots of different pandemic before. So there's no way out because 100% stabilizing this kind of situation with the pandemic is not possible. It's kind of really a tiring process, and government putting a lot of money, stimulus budgets and backup plan, financial aid to the people, like small businesses. If this kind of the period of time with this kind of last another year or something like that, so that was a big disaster in terms of economy and everything. So that's why Swedish government, they didn't adopt the other countries' action plan against the COVID-19. So they let everything happen, open, and they don't wear any masks. And in the UK, they have parties everywhere. So I think probably
I'm going there, guys. I'm going there.
It's like called the herd infection. So everybody get caught by COVID-19.
Let's get it and let's get antibody and be done with it. And let's go back to work.
The world is getting crazier. The big problem is there has been a lot of mutations going on with COVID-19. It's like 19.
True. I've heard of it.
COVID-20 coming soon, or we are actually facing winter time. So winter is coming now, and you never know. So vaccine is not the kind of answer to this situation. The vaccine is only protection. We need a treatment, but I don't believe that treatments is really. We can actually anticipate or look forward to the treatments coming out in the market or our community within a year or something. So we have to have the kind of a contingency plan how to survive, but not individually, and kind of a society altogether. And
this is really important. And look at the San Francisco. Maybe New York City is more better right now.
Landlord commercial buildings, they got nothing to do. So who's going to actually protect them, and who's going to protect the company employees? I think maybe Europeans, for example, the British system is a little bit different. They're not actually firing people because the government actually support all the businesses to save the employees. But here in the United States, we have to.
And we never have funding for help. That's the funny part. We're paying crazy taxes. The funding is always lacking.
Right.
There's something wrong with that picture.
Okay, let's do it something in this picture. Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you for this time. Thank you for this live stream.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's do something with PropTech, with new
Yes,
technologies
sounds good.
yeah. See you next week. Thank you so much, guys.
See you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you for your thoughts.
Bye.
Yes.
See you